It's a Thursday off day for the Cardinals, but not here on Cards Hub 365, presented by Gray Bar, on Sports Hub STL, presented by DraftKings. The crown is yours. 365 days a year of Cardinal coverage, even when the team is off. The Cardinals 4-2 after the first 6 games down at Busch Stadium. I'm Joe Roderick, joined alongside by Brenden Schaeffer and B-Shafe. We talked a lot throughout the month of February and throughout most of March about this team. I don't think, and we've said this a few times, I don't think that anybody could have seen this 4-2 start coming after some of the struggles they had in Jupiter.
Yeah, I mean, if you were going to say that the spring numbers were super relevant, you wouldn't have expected the offensive outburst, certainly, that we have seen from the Cardinals over the first week of the season. But we kind of had those conversations, didn't we, about how real is this? How sticky are these struggles going to be for these players? Or can the season show up and the guys can turn it on? And we've seen that happen. And it's been like the switch has gone off, I think, in the Brent Brown era. A lot of people talking about the new hitting coach. I do. I see the differences in the at-bats that these Cardinals are taking compared to last year, the philosophy shift potentially. And it's like, well, why should you have a philosophy that isn't just get hits, score runs, right? But there are elements of this that I think are setting the Cardinals up for success, maybe a little more so than what they had in the past. And maybe it's just the placebo effect, right? Guys are in the right mindset with whatever Brent Brown is preaching to them. They're finding their comfort zone. And I think we've seen over the course of the first 6 games, even though the Cardinals dropped a couple of them, you can make a case that they weren't too far off from going 6-0, Joe. Even the 2 games they lost, they were in extra innings, and they put up a fight in both of them. So you're definitely liking the signs you're seeing over the first week.
I think it's more, okay, I don't think Brant Brown just came in and, told Jordan Walker to keep his back elbow up a little higher, and suddenly now he's hitting the ball. I think it's a lot of maybe getting them to buy into philosophy, getting them to buy into a team concept. And for somebody like a Nolan Arenado, Chip Carey brought it up this morning on the Randy Carricker show featuring Brooke Grimsley, that you look at, some of Nolan's hits early on this season, and how instead of being a fly ball pull hitter power guy, you're seeing him go up the middle a little bit. You're seeing him go more line drive, get the ball on the ground. I mean, how many times already in the first 6 games have we seen Arenado just ground balls through holes in the infield? And I think it's those, Nolan Arenado knows how to hit. Nolan Arenado is not being taught really anything new on how to hit a baseball. But I think maybe it's more of a reflecting of, you know what? Hey, things didn't work for me last year. Things as a whole didn't work for us last year. Instead of me, hitting a home run or putting a ball in the gap, if I get a single here and move the runner over, or at least drive one in, that keeps the train moving and that keeps this offense going. And it's more of a team first and a me first type of attitude.
Well, and I think you're always going to want the home runs and the balls in the gap from Arenado, but when those things weren't working last year, he wasn't able to produce them. Do you start to press, and do you get yourself into a situation where, that's all you can focus on and you're just kind of out of sorts, right? I think a willingness to just kind of blend into what's happening around you, hitting can be contagious. And I think that's an example of something we're seeing as well when the guys at number 8, number 9 in the order are grinding out 8, 9, 10 pitch at bats and then ending it with a base hit or a home run like Jordan Walker did the other day to dead straightaway center field. It can become a contagious thing that, you expect the guys at the top of the order to work counts and to take that kind of philosophy. But when guys at the bottom are doing it, when it's happening 1 through 9, it becomes more of a contagious and team-oriented effort, I think. And you're seeing that up and down the order right now with the numbers that the Cardinals are producing. And I feel like, too, there are moments where you feel like, oh, that could be a knockout blow. Sonny Gray gives up a grand slam yesterday. You feel like that's going to be a knockout blow. And then when it's not, when the 2 guys that you would say had been struggling the first 5 games of the season, Wilson Contreras and Mason Wynn, are the 2 that end up really sparking that rally to get back to even Steven at 5-5 yesterday, setting up the heroics late by the rest of the lineup when the Cardinals put up a 7th spot in the 8th inning. Like those sorts of things happening, it's hard not to feel good about that kind of stuff happening for the Cardinals this early in the season. Like you haven't had to wait to see how's this philosophy going to play out? How are things going to look? Out of the gate, I would say we've seen that pretty consistently across all 6 games the Cardinals have played.
Yeah, and as in the comments, and please weigh in on the YouTube chat. As Space says, you see the discipline Walker and Burleson so far this year. You are really high on Nootbaar and his discipline at the plate, and I think there's been a few times this year already early on where you've seen Victor Scott II and Mason Wynn. Mason Wynn has struggled a lot to get hits, but I still feel like we have seen quite a few good at bats out of him. We've seen him get walks. The swing and the contact hasn't been there a lot, and he has struck out more than he'd like to have so far through 6 games. But you're seeing the way the lineup's built when you see those guys, the 8-9 guys, work the counts, get the pitch total up, or even walk and get on base, and it turns it over to 1 and 2 in the lineup, especially with Nootbaar hitting the way he is. That was the thinking behind building this lineup the way that they did after seeing Mason Wynn struggle in spring training.
Right. And I don't know how late in the process they made that decision to bump Mason Wynn down. Like, I think Ollie Marmol gave every opportunity through spring. Like, all right, let's see these at-bats turn around for Mason Wynn. He's going to be in there regardless. But as we're crafting the top of this order and trying to put together a more productive offense this year, push came to shove, and you say, Nootbaar, we really believe in the type of spark that he could be for the lineup if you put him in and let him set the tone. And that's absolutely what Lars Nootbaar has done to this point. So it's really hard to argue with the way that they've put it together, but everybody kind of has their place in the lineup. Everybody kind of has their role, and it's very refreshing to see pretty much everybody filling that role now that we have seen Wilson Contreras and Mason Wynn both have something positive happen for them. Like, that win doesn't happen yesterday if those two guys don't kind of bust out of their slumps at the identical time in that inning and get on the board for their team. So it's really kind of rolling right now, and you get the day off and an opportunity now to go see how it's going to look on the road. But encourage, right? And we've done 8 minutes on this podcast, and we haven't even said Ivan Herrera's name. He's been obviously, if you look, Ivan Herrera would be leading MLB among qualified hitters in slugging percentage and OPS right now. There's one little problem with that, though. He's not a qualifying hitter, which I think is a topic that I am very intrigued by, of like, how do you continue to get his bat into the lineup if he is one of the best hitters on your team, which I believe that he is. And so those will be sort of the conversations that you're going to continue to have, and it'll happen with a guy like Gorman too. I mean, the Cardinals are 4-2. They've played 6 games and things are going well offensively. Gorman, in the spots that he's shown up, has done a nice job, but he has been kind of an afterthought as well. And how often do the Cardinals find a way to get him into the mix too is going to continue to be a challenge, Joe. But when the Cardinals are doing well, it's kind of going into that good problem to have category rather than, you don't have anybody to plug in 1 through 9.
Yeah, and with that being said, I think we talked a lot about Herrera being a DH when Pages would catch and you would work Herrera into that DH role. But the first opportunity they gave the Luken Baker, he performed, and
Right.
he earned himself another start against a lefty. And when you have that happening, then you run into a position where you just don't have the positions for everybody, because when you put Pedro Pages and Ivan Herrera and Wilson Contreras and Luken Baker, when you put them all together, there are not enough spots in a real life major league lineup for those guys. If we're playing the show, then I'm putting Wilson Contreras in right field, and I'm just hoping the ball doesn't get hit to him.
Yeah.
So
you're not worried about that, right?
No, but in real life, you can't play them all, and Luken Baker is still earning himself those spots right now. Somebody in the chat the other day, I love this comment the other day when somebody said Luken Baker looks like a guy who never wants to go back to Memphis. And that's what he's kind of proved his first couple games.
And I think it's interesting. Like, we talk about it in the context of Luken Baker has earned a spot on the team, like he's on the roster. I have categorized him mentally as more of a bench bat, mostly in the context of knowing how many other guys they're trying to fit in. But right away, they said, here's what we believe about Luken Baker when it comes to him facing left-handed pitching. Not only is he going to be in the lineup as the DH, he's going to be batting third, basically sandwiched between some of the other top hitters on the team, and almost daring the opposing manager to give us a late pinch hit opportunity with a Burleson or a Gorman against a right-handed reliever for that portion of the lineup. Like, I'm into it. I really like that alignment, but it's happened, they faced a couple of lefties and it's happened both times. So it's happened more than I expected, whereas I kind of thought those would be the moments where they would find more opportunity for Pages to catch and Ivan Herrera to be the designated hitter. And it's still very early. We still may see some alignments toward that end, Joe, but I think it is definitely an interesting conversation because when I thought about the 10 guys, like Luken Baker wasn't really on that list. He was more of an afterthought of, hey, he's not going back to Memphis. He's going to be on this team and he's going to be taking probably one at bat per game. But we've seen a week of play where he's already drawn a couple of starts and they're placing him prominently up in that lineup, which kind of begs that question of, all right, you're looking for the spots where everybody's going to fit. And I think against lefties, the way they're doing it makes perfect sense. As long as Herrera's in there, you're pretty much good with what it looks like offensively. But we know that Herrera's not going to catch every game, and we're starting to see, those little moments creep up where they're looking, okay, defensively, can we afford in this close game to have Herrera behind the plate versus Pages? Herrera's going to be taken out of the game a little bit early. Those are sometimes at bats that you're going to give away from the guy that right now is performing as the best hitter in the league. It's a challenge, but at the end of the day, when you're 4-2, it's more of, it's details. The details aren't going to be that important. But the quote that struck me from Luken Baker, where he said, if you hit, you don't sit. He's not talking about just being a guy on the bench. He's trying to earn that everyday opportunity. It's going to be difficult, of course, to get him in there against righties, but that's his mentality, and I think that was telling.
And the opportunity, if he ever does get an opportunity early on this season against righties, it'll be up to him to prove that. I've always had an issue though when in Luken Baker, the Cardinals have done this in the past, but Luken Baker, again, when he starts, they're putting him third in the lineup. But if it's against a righty, he's not in the lineup at all. So you're telling me that he's good enough to be a 3-hitter, but that otherwise you don't want him anywhere near your starting lineup if otherwise.
I don't know that they don't want him in there against righties, but look at the names that we would be talking about, right? You're talking about trying to fit Burleson. You're talking about trying to fit Gorman. Those are the guys matchup-wise that it would be nice to have the DH spot open for either of them. You're not going to sit Jordan Walker hardly ever. You're not wanting to take Ivan Herrera's bat out of the lineup regardless of handedness. So I think it's more about the pecking order in that Luken Baker against righties, even though Luken Baker could be traded today. He won't be, but he could be traded today to a team that doesn't have a first baseman or a DH, and he could go and that team could say, we're not really competing. We're going to give this guy an opportunity that's never really been able to spread his wings, and he could get 550 plate appearances this year, and he could homer 30-plus times, and it could happen just about as often against righties as it does lefties. Like, that could happen. The Cardinals just have other guys in the pecking order where he's going to continue to get lost in the shuffle. But I'm glad that he is at least on this roster because I do think he can make an impact every single day with the chances he gets. I think there's just other guys that you're going, all right, if there's a chance to put Luken Baker in there, we're probably going to figure it out for Gorman first or Burleson first or Herrera first as the DH.
This is Cards Hub 365 here on Sports Hub STL, presented by DraftKings. The crown is yours. Cards Hub 365, brought to you each and every day by Gray Bar. If you're still suffering from supply chain issues and they're disrupting your operations, have no fear because Gray Bar has you covered. You can rely on their nationwide logistics network to get what you need, where they need, when they need to get there, all within budget. They support products of any industry to serve as that vital link in the supply chain, adding value for customers and suppliers with innovative solutions and services. Go to graybar.com to start an order today. That's graybar.com and fix those supply chain issues with Graybar, your distributor for electrical and datacom needs. Joe Roderick, Brenden Schaeffer here with you. And I don't know if you have seen yet or if you've looked through all of the stats. I was surprised to see earlier today just team stats through the first, reflecting on the first week of the Cardinals season. Third right now in all of baseball in batting average, just 1/100th of a point behind the Phillies at the top spot. Phillies as a team right now hitting 299. The Padres and the Cardinals both hitting 298 right now. I was shocked to see that. It's not surprising when you actually go back and you look at the fact that they have 10 plus hits in every game so far this year. But I was genuinely shocked to see that their offense is performing to this level right now as it relates to the rest of Major League Baseball.
I mean, there were conversations that we had during spring training, Joe, where we said, okay, go 1 through 9 in the lineup. Who's bad? Who's not very good? Whose projections would you say, nah, I don't trust in him. I don't believe in that player. I didn't have very many of those, and we have seen it kind of play out that way to begin the season. Even an Arenado, who was down last year, has started strong. We know what Herrera is doing. Lars Nootbaar has been on fire. Really, you're talking about Wilson Contreras and Mason Wynn that have been slow to come along, and we're already starting to see signs of them turning things around. And then like Brendan Donovan, maybe a little bit below expectation so far. I still feel like he's miscast as a guy that's having to kind of fill a role in the middle of the lineup rather than be someone who can take advantage of his on-base skills as a table setter. But it's not the end of the world when you have Lars Nootbaar doing what he's doing at the top of the lineup. So you really don't have a lot to complain about 1 through 9. And when that's the case, you're liable to end up ranking pretty highly across Major League Baseball when you think about the way that the first week has gone.
Yeah, third surprised me. I think for the most part, we've heard so much about the offense. The Dodgers are 8-0. So you have that. The Yankees and the torpedo bats have just hit so many homers so many times. The Cubs and what they did to the Athletics this past week. That's I think what was most surprising to me, that they were third. Now, of course, the Yankees are 8th, the Dodgers are 12th, and then the Cubs, you got to scroll, 10th for the Cubs. But I think that's what surprised me, though, that it was third overall.
Well, I
think
don't
that speaks to what you said earlier in the show, and I think what's most fans, whether they care to acknowledge it or not, this is a team that could easily be 6-0 if those 2 extra inning games go a different way.
I think you've had 6 games where the Cardinals offensively have put together. I'm not saying they've scored a bunch of runs every game. I think the approach, and if you actually watch the games and not just glance at the box scores, you feel pretty good coming away from it about how it unfolded offensively. And look, I'll be the first to tell you, I really don't care that much about batting average. It matters, but it's third of the 3 in terms of if you're looking at average on base or slug. For me, I put that one to the rear. So I'll look at OPS, where the Cardinals are also third right now behind the Yankees and the Phillies. So like that to me is indicative of an approach that is working. Now, the sample size, in the same way that in years past we've talked about it being early when the Cardinals were struggling, we still have to acknowledge that it's early when the Cardinals are doing well. It doesn't mean that this is going to be sustained for the full season, but like you have to feel pretty decent about it. And we'll see too. You go, okay, you've played 2 teams. I came into the season thinking the Angels were going to lose 100 games. They impressed me a little bit with how they managed the series against the Cardinals this week. Maybe they don't lose 100 games. I still don't think that they're very good. I don't think their roster is very deep. But the pitching staff for the Twins, like you faced a couple of starters. Joe Ryan was involved there. You faced Pablo Lopez. You know with the series against the Angels that it's always going to be difficult to face Kyle Hendricks. And so they didn't crush all of those guys necessarily, but they did enough against some pitchers that you kind of figured this was going to be a little bit of a challenge. And then they've done well against bullpens too. So 1 through 9 in terms of the lineup and in terms of the inning of the game, really 1 through 11 in terms of the inning of the game, they have been able to put up quality at bats. And it's hopefully something that you'll see continue, because I do think the premise I had last year was that the lineup is going to have to carry a pitching staff that's going to be middling. Like you set it up last year to be middling, and it was not quite middling. It was a little bit lesser than that in terms of starters ERA. I think this year it's still pretty applicable. I think the rotation can be okay, but it's not going to carry you. And you're going to get some outlier performances in the other direction from the starting staff. The first week didn't see any. Everybody was pretty well solid. They're going to need to be able to outslug some teams, I think, as the year goes along. And with what we've seen in the first week, it's possible that they're actually able to do that.
Team ERA right now, or I should say starters ERA right now, 4.05, I think, through 33 in the third innings for that, which, again, you look back at what we talked about in spring training. If you would have said, hey, after 6 games, the starters will have gone 33 in a third inning, you wouldn't have believed that. You wouldn't have thought that was true.
Yeah, what's that, 5.5 innings basically per start? They haven't had anybody that's been egregious, inefficient. Palante only went 5, could have gone more, but for the rain delay that day. So you're feeling good about that. And the one time we've seen Steven Matz, he went 4 scoreless, and he's the next man into your rotation here before too long. So you're feeling okay about that. I mean, the bullpen has been tasked in this first week. They've been asked to do more than Oliver Marmol, I think, would have wanted to ask of them, and they've largely answered the bell. There were moments where they didn't, right? Like Ryan Fernandez, Chris Roycroft, those are your 7th, 8th inning type of guys that didn't come through the other night when you were in an extra inning situation. But I still think that's a group that can at least be average, can be solid for you on the whole. You've got a great closer. Like you look around 1 through 26, I think this roster is put together better than it was last year for sure, and in ways that maybe we underappreciated coming into this year how together it might end up looking. Again, through 1 week, I have to continue to give that caveat.
Yeah, and I think moving forward, and I think you and I talked about this. I look at the way that you approach an extra inning game, and I know that we saw Ryan Helsley come in the bottom of the ninth inning or top of the ninth inning on Monday and Tuesday for that extra inning game. 10th inning, top of the 10th inning, those situations seems like a much better situation for Ryan Helsley, a strikeout pitcher, when you start with a runner on second base.
I understand that. I still don't have any problem with what Ollie did, bringing him in the ninth both times. Like, let's take Tuesday, for example. You have Mike Trout coming up in that ninth inning. If you were looking at the situation and saying, I don't really trust Ryan Fernandez right now, he doesn't look as strong as I'd want, or I don't really trust what Roycroft is going to do, I'm just not so sure what you're going to get out of him. Okay, I mean, you can have either of those guys face Mike Trout if you want. You may not get to the 10th inning, though. I understand the idea, and I agree with it. Like, Ryan Helsley's going to have a better chance of getting you through a 10th inning, either scoreless or allowing only one of the runs to score, the guy who's automatically placed on second base. But, like, is there merit to the idea that you may not get to that situation in the first place if you take for granted what happens in the ninth? Because I think that's an example of, as a society, we look at a situation and say, well, this is what went wrong, so they must have done something wrong in that moment. Here's where they should have done it differently. But I don't think we should be eligible to take for granted that they got through both of those ninth innings very cleanly because they had their best reliever, and especially Tuesday, facing 2, 3, and 4 in the Angels order. I don't remember who the batters were on Monday offhand that Helsley faced, but I knew Tuesday, I'm going, that's their best spot in the lineup. You might not get to the extra inning situation if you don't have a real lockdown guy in that spot. And I also think in the 10th inning, I understand it. They're aggressive and they're willing to put guys on base. They're willing to intentionally walk guys to set up the best scenario. But that might be the area where you go, maybe just play this straight up, because giving up 1 run doesn't kill you. Giving up 3 still didn't kill you, but giving up 3 the second time did. And so how willing should you be to put guys on base so freely when it's not your Ryan Helsley, right? Like, if it's Helsley and you go the way that Joe wants to go in the 10th, then I may be a little bit more in line with that, because I think there are better ways to get out of it. But if you're asking for your guy to get you a ground ball double play and it's not your best pitcher out there, that could be a little bit more dicey. I love these conversations, though, because I don't think there's a 100% right or wrong way to go. Of course, Ollie's an idiot when he does it the way that everybody doesn't like. But I think it's actually a compelling conversation. I could see both sides of it. I really could.
And again, in the moment when that happens, I look at that and I think, okay, hey, it's a tie game right now. Helsley's coming in the ninth. They're either winning the bottom of the ninth or they're going to the 10th. Like, those are with the way Helsley has pitched now last year and what we've seen from him so far early this year, you have the confidence in him to go out there and get those 3 outs and move you on to the next, which I get is the mindset too of Ollie in that situation, that he's saying, I'm going to put this team in a situation where we can go into the 9th inning and it's a tie game and all we need is 1 to win it. Where I think maybe it's a case of when you have more confidence in the other parts of your bullpen, that, if Roycroft pitches the way that we saw him pitch in spring training and in game 1 of the year, I think that's more of my thinking behind this. Is I don't want to put, when it comes to putting them in a situation where you're starting the inning with a man on second,
it's tough.
I think that's where you take the veteran, pitcher in a Ryan Helsley and you put him there instead of was it Roycroft? Who was the other? Was it Leahy was the other one, or was it
Ryan Fernandez was the guy Tuesday that was in there in the 10th and gave up the 3, and then Roycroft gave up the 3 in the 11th. So, like, yeah, I think it's interesting philosophy for sure. And when you're number 2 and you're number 3 and you're number 4 righty in your bullpen are guys that you trust more, I think it's a little bit of a different conversation for sure, because right now, and like I saw some silly things from some Cardinals fans after Fernandez gave up the 3 runs in the 10th on Tuesday, where it's like, he's just a quad A pitcher. He's no good. And it's like, guys, his numbers last year, when you kind of thought he might be a quad A pitcher, but you had to keep him on the roster because he was a Rule 5 guy, he was great for most of the season last year. Relievers putting up the kind of numbers that Ryan Fernandez did in 2024 don't grow on trees. So you do have to kind of take that into effect and consider the context of that. But this year, like, you don't have an Andrew Kittredge, and so you're still trying to figure out, like, who are the other righties. Phil Maton comes in, and so far we have liked what we've seen from him. And it was a day where they just didn't really want to go to it. Ollie wanted to save him, give him one more day of rest because they're trying to keep him healthy and ramp him up with a little bit of care because he didn't have a spring training. So I have to respect that as well. It is definitely interesting, and I'll be curious to see how do the Cardinals do it next time. Because that philosophy of, all right, let's start walking guys, let's put guys on base because we've got a guy who can induce a ground ball on the mound. That's dangerous. That's the kind of philosophy that leads to maybe not, you might be able to get out of it without giving up any runs and win it in the bottom half with your Manfred man, or you give up 3 because you put additional guys on base, and when the ground ball comes, it gets through the hole because that's what ground balls do sometimes, and you play that luck. With a strikeout pitcher, the more of them you have, the more inclined you are, I think, Joe, to be able to organize your bullpen that way. But at times, it seems like the Cardinals are almost inviting the ground ball or the batted ball and hoping they can turn 2 on it to be able to do it, to escape a jam like that, rather than saying, hey, let's save our best bullet for a situation that may not come up. But if it happens, we're glad that we did. I just think Ollie would have gotten killed if you bring Fernandez in and Trout homers off of him and you never get to see Helsley in that game. Say, Helsley can't go back-to-back. Why wouldn't they use him back-to-back? No, they were willing to. They just, in the way that would have been organized, would have been saving him for a 10th inning that never occurred.
The Cardinals this weekend will go up against the Red Sox. It's Boston's home opener tomorrow. And looking at the pitching matchups for this weekend, Brendan, I know you're working on an article right now about how to get Ivan Herrera more at bats than what you were contemplating it, working on it.
I'm writing it. I just don't know if it's an article about the strategy of how to do it. It's more about like, hey, we're going to throw this question out there because when you look at the fact that Herrera's leading the league in all these statistical categories, except for he's not because he hasn't batted enough to qualify, that's not just, okay, he has to start every day at catcher, because you can look and count on one hand last year the number of catchers that played in 140 or more games. And of that group, a lot of them didn't catch even 120 games. They're DHing a bunch. It's going to be hard to find Herrera DH opportunities against right-handed pitching if you've got these lefties, Burleson and Gorman, that are going to be prioritized. But there's a case to be made that you maybe just have Herrera in there, even if it's against a righty, even if he's not catching, and you're going to have your Pages days because the defensive numbers for Herrera are still something to monitor. I think it's a fascinating conversation. But, like, I'll ask you right now, Joe, how many hitters on this Cardinals team, in your estimation, are better hitters? And I'm not asking about platoon or handedness. How many are better than Ivan Herrera? Because I came into the season thinking 2, and I haven't seen anything that's different from that. He might even be higher than that on the list, although I still think Wilson Contreras is going to find his level.
Who were your 2?
Newt and Contreras. That's it.
Okay.
And that was with a mind on her.
I think I would have gone more. I think I would have gone more in front of Wilson Contreras then, because I think I would have gone Donovan Burleson, but ahead of him too.
The 2 best hitters on the team?
Better than Herrera.
Oh, okay. So Herrera drops down a couple of slots because you're crediting Donnie and Burley.
Yes.
Which is, look, man, those guys are pure hitters as well. And then there's this Nolan Arenado guy that might be in the Hall of Fame someday that we were kind of coming into the season not really knowing where to place him. If he continues like he's doing right now, I undersold him, putting him behind Herrera as well. I just wanted to illustrate the point that I came in thinking Herrera is an unbelievable talent offensively. We've seen that play out for the first week of the year. Is it possible to get him more at bats, short of he has to close the gap defensively with Pedro Pages, which is something that he wants to do. He is working hard to do. Every time that Ollie Marmol or anybody has talked about it, they praise the efforts that he is putting in. Yesterday, when he's talking to the media after his big day, he's talking about Yadier Molina was that dude defensively too. I am trying to become like that. I value that very highly. It's impossible not to root for Ivan Herrera. He is a great dude and a guy that you want to see succeed. It's very interesting, though, exactly how they're going to find a way to make sure he qualifies for statistical categories so he can win the damn MVP. Like, he's got to be in the lineup one way or another. I think it's going to be a season-long push-pull conversation as to how that happens and how creative the management can be to make sure it happens.
Looking at the Boston and Orioles game right now, it's in the 5th inning. Red Sox up 5-3. So Cardinals getting a little bit of an advantage with Boston having to play today and then head back home, while the Cardinals are sitting in Boston today on their off day.
Good
and
point.
Tanner Houck only goes 4 innings today for the Red Sox. So Red Sox already in their bullpen before Walker Buehler gets the start in tomorrow afternoon's game in Boston. So they get into that bullpen and make it a long weekend for them.
They just might do that, and I'll be curious to see. It's going to be fun. Like every day, and I'm not doing this from a perspective of like, oh, I'm ready to rip the manager. I'm ready to see how Oliver Marmol manages this thing when you've got 11, maybe 12. I talked about it with Randy Carricker yesterday on our post game on Sports Hub STL, that other than Michael Ciani, there is an impetus to get everybody into the starting lineup one way or another. Page's not really motivated by the bat as much as his defense, but that's a very full crowd for a group that only allows 9 seats at the table on a given day. Now, do you get an opportunity this weekend to see, does ballpark influence it? With that short porch in left field with the Green Monster, do they go in a particular direction that would be different than another? We're going to get to continue to see how this plays out, but it's a good problem to have right now that you've got more guys than you have spots, and you feel pretty good about all of them offensively too.
With all of that too, yeah. How do you go about that, aligning the defense for this weekend with the Green Monster out there, with the outfielders you have on hand? I guess we will find that out tomorrow.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Like you'd like
do
to think,
do you put Walker in left? I mean, you put Walker.
I don't think you do, but it's an interesting question, right? Like less range over there that you have to contend with. I don't think that they will. I think you're going to leave well enough alone when it comes to Walker. He looks good at the plate. He's acclimating in the field. You've got a center fielder in Victor Scott. I think what you do is you tell Lars Nootbaar, like, all right, dude, if it's hit anywhere toward you, it's you, because Victor Scott is going to be shaded toward Jordan, and we're going to try to run down everything, right? So, like, that's a way that you maybe play it. But it's a fascinating conversation that I think is going to be applicable when the Cardinals go on the road to see, if there's a more spacious ballpark. Remember a couple of years ago with Walker, when he got sent down that first time after making the team out of camp and not ever going to AAA, it was in the midst of a series in San Francisco, which has a more spacious ballpark out there. If they go to the Giants, are they going to play Michael Ciani for a game in center field and Victor Scott in right off the bat with certain pitchers that have fly ball tendencies? Like, these are the ways I think that modern managing is going to go. And the Cardinals have a manager that is in tune with those things. Whether you like it or not as a fan, I do kind of think it matters. And we're going to see if that's a way that they can divvy up the opportunities here to try to get the most out of the roster that they have.
How about this? Burleson in left, Nootbaar in right, and you DH Walker.
Okay, so, yeah, I mean, you could do that for a game. I don't think it's the craziest thing in the world. I don't think they want a couple of different things that I've.
But you're not switching. I mean, Burleson's a guy who I'd have to go look, but I mean, he's been up here for a few years. I don't know if he played 2 years ago, the last time the Cardinals were in Boston, series. But the options are there for that, where you're also not messing with Jordan Walker's development of playing right field, and you have a guy like Burleson, you have a Nootbaar that can do that too. So
yeah.
It's also, Walker has started every game too so far, and it's almost a extra day off of him having to play defense, I guess, in that sense. So there are
stuff like that in, I think, for sure, as you go along. Here's the one thing that I will say, I'm feeling a little bit of regret, because I could have taken some money off you. I haven't seen Lars Nootbaar in center field yet. Have you?
Nope. I had that next on my list of things to bring up. The other one too, I was wrong about. I really, really thought Michael Ciani was going to be this year's Matt Carpenter, where he was going to get some starts, and I was just going to get angry about it. And
he'll
haven't
start
seen the Ciani starts either.
No, it hasn't happened, and it won't happen much. Not with the way Victor's playing. And look, that's part of it. Like, Victor's going to play. Yes. He's just going to be the player. And so, like, I was pretty confident when we did the show that day, when I looked dead in the eye of the camera and said, you will not see Lars Nootbaar play center field. You may see it at some point, but you wouldn't think it would be this weekend. In the ballpark that they've got, they don't really, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they prioritize it, but why would you take Victor Scott out of the lineup right now, right? The way that he's playing, just continue to let him do his thing. And his spot.
Yeah, you face a lefty on Sunday. So maybe, it's,
I don't know.
But again, that's still a few days away for that. But yeah, now that we've talked about it, I am very interested to see the defensive dynamic they put out there starting tomorrow afternoon. And
if we're overthinking it, if it's the same and they don't do anything special for it, Okay, that's fine too. But we've got a Thursday off day, and we're talking Cardinals baseball for 40 minutes because that's what we do in St. Louis. And I think it's reasonable to get into some of the minutia like that because it gets interesting as the season unfolds, where you're looking for what is this Cardinals team really going to be, and those are the types of decisions that I think are also going to play into that. I want to see some Gorman this weekend though too. Like he didn't really do anything wrong. He didn't have a great spring, but he just kind of lost out in the shuffle to a guy that can play impeccable center field defense, and he's also doing it at the plate right now. So we'll see if they find ways to get Gorman in there this weekend, but I hope that they do.
And he's gotten 2 starts already this year too. So I think we'll see if he gets in there tomorrow or Saturday against the lefty in the lineup. This is Cards Hub 365 presented by Gray Bar, and all of our content on Sports Hub STL is brought to you by DraftKings. DraftKings, the crown is yours. Get those picks in on DraftKings Pick 6, and if you download the DraftKings Pick 6 app, and you do so now, you use code STL Sports. That's STL Sports, and that code is good to get customers $5, or you play $5, you get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Better payouts, bigger wins, only with Pick 6 from DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
And the pick 6 yesterday, I felt real good about it in the Roddy bombs. O'Neal Cruz homered to in his first at bat yesterday, and I was feeling real good about it, and then got nothing from my other 2.
Who else did you have in there?
I had Lane Thomas on there. I went all guys that use torpedo bats.
Okay.
I have done the research. I found a Twitter account that is now tracking who is using the torpedo bats in MLB. So I went with Lane Thomas, and then in the late game last night, I went with Adley Rutschman. I went with Adley Rutschman in the later game, and nothing for Rutschman or Lane Thomas yesterday in the game. But O'Neal Cruz started me off with a bomb at the beginning.
Poor Roddy. Well, you tried.
I did. I gotta look at the games for later today and see who I'm picking for tonight's games in the home run category for that. All right, Brenden, that's going to do it for our show today here on Cards Hub 365. We will be back tomorrow morning. Another baseball for breakfast. It's an early game for the Red Sox and Cardinals tomorrow in Boston. It's the Red Sox opening day. So Rocky and I will be your way. We'll come your way early, and then Ryan Fagan and I will have the post game tomorrow afternoon. So look forward to talking a little baseball with Fagan tomorrow afternoon after the Cardinals and Red Sox. He is Brenden Schaeffer. I'm Joe Roderick. This has been Cards Hub 365, presented by Gray Bar here on Sports Hub STL.